So let's get started in putting one of our drawers together. You're going to need that dry cloth and one of your drawers, your little tray, and I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of water in my tray. I also wanted to show you, this is the little pop tin that we have. It's actually a tonic water tin, and I just put my blades for my knife inside a tin. And that way no one gets cut or anything like that. You're going to need your packing tape and some scissors. And I believe you'll need your sharp knife for this as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to lay out, I'm just going to move some stuff over here. Okay, move that off there. We're going to lay out our drawer just like this. And I found this is probably the easiest way to do this. I've tried it a couple of different ways, and this is just, I find the easiest way to do this. So you're just going to line up your pieces so it makes a little cross. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of the packing tape, and we want to take a piece that is approximately the, and I just eyeball it and cut. So we need a piece that will be the width of this here, the long piece, that little seam. So I take my packing tape, and this is 2 1/4 inches, and I fold it in half. Like this. And then I'm going to cut that piece. Like that. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to fold it where the craft paper side together, not the sticky side. So we're going to be folding that in half. And you can follow one of the strings if you like. You don't have to follow, it doesn't have to be exactly in half. Like if I fold that on the string, it's off by, 1/16 of an inch. That's fine. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting that right on the hinge. We're going to use that line to keep it straight. And then I just cut off the ends. I'm going to cut that piece off. And again, I'm just eyeballing it. We want it to kind of fit within that thing there. Okay. And then we're going to take our water. Let me just see how much I can move over a bit here. Let's move this over a smidge. And then we take our water, and I'm just going to put it in the water. And I'm literally just going to put 2 fingers on it and slide the paper underneath my 2 fingers like that. And run my fingers down. That's why we want to keep our cloth handy. And then I'll start with this bottom one. We keep the pieces together nice and tight. And then we just set this piece right on top. Make sure our piece is together nice and tight. And then you take your dry cloth and you're just going to wipe along the top of that piece. So it's going to absorb the excess water on the top like that. And you're going to do the same thing to the other side. And the reason we're folding it this way is when this is the inside of the box. So when we flip it up, there'll be a little crease there. You don't have to put the crease in, but I just find it easier to line up along that fold there. And it can be a little shorter. It doesn't have to be the exact length. And again, I'm going to put it in the water. I'm going to put 2 fingers down on top of it. And I'm just going to pull it through. And run my fingers down to get any excess off. Wipe my hands on the cloth. And the back becomes, the sticky part becomes very, very sticky and activated. And we're just going to set that on there like that. Take our dry cloth and wipe it off. And that is, instead of using tape or double-sided tape or anything like that, this glue and paper, it's already sticky, so why not use it as is. Now for the side flaps, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to use a piece as long as this. So I'm just going to measure it with my finger. And cut it, and let's see if I've done that right. Yeah, we want it to be a little tiny bit shorter than this, and we're going to need 2 of them. So I just take my first piece, hold it up against my tape there, and we're going to cut another piece off. Like that. And then we're going to take one of these pieces and make sure our pieces are lined up. And I find a piece, again, this has lines in it. You can't see it very well, but I just take one of the lines and I just fold it back like that. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm only going to wet this little strip here. So I'm just going to dip my finger in the water. And we don't have to trim off this piece because it's shorter than the actual piece. And again, I'm just quickly activating that glue by rubbing my wet finger there, and I'm going to dry it off on my cloth. And then we're going to line this up with the edge of this piece here. And the nice thing about this tape is you have a second to move it around. So you can move it down or up, or you have a couple of seconds there. And then I'm just going to rub along the edge like that. So that place. And then when we lay it flat, make sure we're lined up here. Then I'm going to just wet where this piece is. So again, and you can use a paintbrush, which I usually do. Let me just grab a paintbrush. You can use your finger or a paintbrush, and I just kind of wet it real quick. Like that. Make sure your piece is corner to corner, and then flip that piece over. And again, we'll rub it down. So you only want to have this long strip that's touching this full piece, and this little piece here that's literally going on to this piece here. So we're going to do the same thing for the other side. We're just going to pick a side and fold it over, so about 1/2 inch. I just use one of the string marks. And I'm just going to dip my finger, and I'm going to hold it over the water, and we're going to activate that glue. And you want to make sure that it's wet, that glue. If it's just damp, it won't stick very well. Oops, I'm going to make sure to do upside right. And again, we're going to line it up to the edge of our piece. And we're going to run our finger along the edge, and we can pull it down a smidge. There we go. Okay. And then we're just going to fold it back. Line up this little piece. Get our little, you can use your finger or a paintbrush, and we're just going to wet just where that board is. Make sure it's lined up, and then fold that piece over. Okay, like that. So this is the inside of our box. I'm just going to move my water out of the way. And now we're going to need our sharp knife, and we're going to flip this over. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut, and I'm just going to bring my mat over. I've done this a couple of times. I've cut this right on top of my silicone mat and put a big slice in it. Now what you're going to do is cut along the edges of the shorter pieces, just like this. 1, 2, like that. And then I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to cut this piece on a tiny, tiny bit of an angle, because we're going to be folding this over, and I don't want it to get caught on anything. So we're just going to cut a little angle out like that. So we have a nice little angled piece, and we'll do the same on the inside of this one. Pull that off. It might be a little bit sticky because when you wet it with your brush, sometimes you overflow. So don't use a really good pair of scissors for this. These are my somewhat These are my glue scissors. Okay, so now we have all these little angles cut. We're going to flip it back over like that. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to fold these flaps up like this, and then we're going to stand your edges of your box up, and we're just going to be touching the corners of your box. So you're going to have like a little V shape. You're not going to try and butt them up against each other. You're just going to be touching the insides together. So you have a little outside V showing. And I am going to grab a couple of pieces of masking tape. I just like to tack, because this moves around when it's wet, I like to have a couple of pieces of masking tape just to stick on the edges while it's drying. So you'll need 4 little pieces of masking tape, or as many as you like. Just to put them on my, so I've got them stuck on my little tape thingy there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet this part of the paper on both sides. And I'm going to frame it. Okay. Then I'm going to stand these pieces up, and and you want the top of your drawer to match. So I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on the edge here. And I'm going to pull it around the corner just to hold it for me, and then I'm just going to push that paper. I'm holding it and I'm just pushing that paper down on the inside like that. So the paper is now attached to the other side, and that's going to hold our box together. But the tape just kind of holds it in place while you rub the paper on. So I'll show you this way. There's my paper. I always have my masking tape in my hand, and I'm going to line up those corners. So we have our little V, and then I'm just going to tack it with, my little piece of tape. So it's just tacking it, and then I'm going to hold that, and I'm just going to push down my, very, very lightly. You're not going to push too hard. And then once it's down, I'll stand it up on the end, and just maybe get a bone folder or even the cloth. Let me get the tape off of my cloth here. And just rub it down. So we'll do the same to the other side. Just make sure all the pieces are down and attached, and you just want to rub it down. So now on the inside, you've attached the 2 sides. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side. You can have a bone folder handy if you want to make sure you get right in the edges and it glues it down, or you can just use your cloth. But I have my 2 pieces of tape, and I'm just going to activate these 2 pieces of tape. And then I'm going to fold them up. See how they're folded in already? I'm going to grab a piece of my masking tape, and I'm going to push these little corners together just gently enough, like that, just to hold it so that I can push down this piece of paper on the inside. And I'm doing this very, very gently. I'm not pushing hard. I'm not, putting a lot of pressure on. Sometimes this one, the paper gets stuck in between, so you want to make sure you pull it out. And you're just going to put your masking tape on there and tack it gently, and then push down your paper like that, nice and gently. Okay, now stand your box up, and you can either use your bone folder and your cloth just to rub that down. Let's flip it over to the other side like that. Okay, so there is the inside of your box. It's all done. It's all held together through the inside. And then what I'm going to do is take some more masking tape. I'm just going to stand this on the side so you can see. Not masking tape, excuse me, packing tape. And all I need is a few pieces about that tall, the height of your box. And it can just be a little bit shorter, so that's perfect. And I need 2 of these pieces. So I'm going to cut 2 of those. Like that. And then we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to fold it in half. exactly, and we're going to cut it. And we'll do the other one. And I find with the strings, it tries to fold on a string. So when you're folding it in half, you're going to actually have to try and avoid letting it fold on that string. All right, so now I've got 4 pieces, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold the sticky sides together. And then I'm just going to put a little tiny angle on the edges. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wet this piece and we're going to attach those to the outside, and that's just going to hold your outside corners together. So I'm going to fold all the pieces first, and you can fold it on the string. It'll leave a little bit of an overhang, but that's fine. Again, and I should actually have my scrap box. I'm going to show you how to make a little scrap box. I watched a group video, one of my Facebook groups, and this lady was making a little project, and she showed us how to make a scrap paper bin holder. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick as soon as I finish this here. Okay, let's do these, and then I'll show you my bin idea. Okay, so we're going to take our water. Let me move all this stuff out of the way. Going to take our water, and you're just going to wet this again really quickly, and I'm just going to dip it in, and then you want to brush off the excess, and then we're just going to glue this on to the edge, one edge, and then push it down to the other side. And again, this is just going to hold that corner together from the outside as well. So I'm just activating the glue and then pushing it down on the corners. And again, wipe off that excess water. And be gentle, because the box is still a little flimsy until this paper dries. It's still a little fragile, so you can't be rough with it. Okay, and then we're going to do the other side. And again, brush off that excess. And just glue that on there. And one more. And rub off the excess, and yes, I'm gluing right over top of the tape, and that's the masking tape that was holding it there. That's okay, because we're going to be covering this with paper, so you won't see that masking tape. That's fine. Okay, so that's kind of holding our corners together now. That's giving it a little bit more stability. I'm really quickly going to show you how to make the little scrap bin. Now you can use a scrap piece of paper out of your recycle bin, and I'm just going to grab this one to show you. We're going to let this dry for a second, because you want to let that paper really grab. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit, and we're just going to set it aside for a second. Let's make a scrap bin to put all these little pieces that we cut off the ends of our packing tape. So what you're going to do is fold this. It's just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and again, it's going to have writing on it. It can be a scrap. You're going to fold it in half one way, and then you're going to fold these pieces to the center. Like that. And open it up. You're going to fold it in half the other way. And fold it to the center. And get it going here. Like that. And then you, okay, sorry, it's this way that you need it to be folded. So you want it to be the taller ends. So the long ends are on the side and the shorter ends are on the top. You want those folded into the sides. I knew I was doing it backwards. Then there's a line here where you've already folded the paper. You're going to take that corner and fold it up to that line. And this corner and fold it up to the line. This corner and fold it up to the line. And this corner and fold it up to the line. So you folded it in half long ways, and then opened it and folded it to the center. Then you fold it in half the short way and then into the center, And at that point, when it's at the shorter edges, you fold up each corner to that line that's there, like that. Then you fold your 1/2 inch down like this, on top of those little corners, just like that. Okay, and then all you do is pop your corners out. Just open it up and pop your corners out and push it in like that. I just pinch my corners, and there is a little scrap bin. So now when you cut all these little pieces, which end up all over my desktop, there's my little scrap bin that I'm going to use. This should be dry. Now what we have to do, and this is the harder part, you have to do this for every drawer, but for my drawers, I like to cover the edges. You don't have to do this. You can leave it just like this and then cover it with paper and leave the raw edges of the box. But I'm going to cover the edges of this and where we've got this other little seam across the bottom. So what we do, and this is going to be a little bit harder to figure out. So let's start with the bottom. I'm just going to move my water out of the way. I have a tendency to spill it. So you literally want a piece that is going to go from the long corner across and down the side. So there's one piece. And then you want that piece again. Whoops, things rolling away. So one long piece. And then I'm going to give myself, let's see if I can flip it over here, about 1.5 inches extra. Okay. So you literally want to go across the box and down, across the box and up, and you want to give yourself at least, you know, 1/2 inch on either side. So we're going 1, let's do it this way so you can see this. 1, 2, and this is just rough measuring. See how it overlaps that edge there? That's what you want. Now you're going to fold this piece in half like we do. We only need a 1-inch piece, so we're going to fold this in half all the way down. And this is going to do the bottom piece and the top piece. And this will give your drawer a nice finish. So let's cut this guy. There we go. And then we're going to just cut along this fold. I'm going to set this one aside. We're going to start on our bottom. So let's show you what we were doing here. So we have one full piece, and it's going to go around the bottom of the box, and then we have another piece that's going to go around the top of the box, like that. So your all your edges of your box are finished with this brown paper, and then I'm going to take my distresser and we're going to distress the edges before you add your paper. So let's do this one, and again, now we're going to fold it in half again. And if you get one of those strings when you start folding it and it just wants to fold on that string, and it's only off by, like I say, an 1/8 of it, 1/16 of an inch, go ahead with that fold, because it's not going to make that much of a difference. It's just going over the edges of your box. Again, we're going to taper the corners just to make it a nicer finish. And I'm doing this over my little scrap bin, so I don't end up with little pieces of scrap paper all over the place. And then I dry fit it. I'm just going to hopefully not dip it in my water here. So I'm going to start here, right on the corner. And I'm going to go around like this, and I'm going to hold it. And I'm going to bend it around. And I'm going to line up that fold that I just made, like that. And then I'm just going to pinch that corner right there. So I have a little piece that's together like that. And then I'm going to pull it away, and you will actually have a little fold there. And what we're going to do is cut a little triangle right where that little pinch was, like that. But we're actually going to make it fairly a little wider, like that. That'll go in our little scrap bin. So now, when we go around the corner, we've got it there, we've got it dry fit, and we go around the corner, we'll have a nice finish there in the corner. So you're going to do it again, you're going to hold it in place, and we're just going to dry fit this all the way around. So now I'm going to hold it there, and I'm going to match up that fold to the edge there, and we're going to do our little pinch. And I just fold that pinch to the left and to the right, so I get a nice couple of lines to follow there, and I cut within those, inside those lines, I cut a little triangle out. Oops. And the string sometimes will, you have to make sure you cut that little string in there. Okay, so there's my second corner. So we're going to go around, and we're going to hold that, and I'm going to dry fit this corner. It's so much easier to dry fit this now than when this tape is really wet and sticky, because it is not fun to try and dry fit this corner when it's sticky. Again, we're going to pinch that corner, bend it left and right, just so it gives you a little mark, and cut that out. Put it in our bin. Okay, so then we have that one, and we have one last corner where it's going to go over that excess. And we're just going to hold it, bend it along, and again, I'm lining up that fold that we've created right with the edge of this box. And then I fold it over, make sure it's nice and even there, and then you're going to pinch and fold and fold. And if it doesn't line up perfectly, that's okay. You can do a little trimming as you go. Okay, so there is our box, and there is our piece. We're going to grab our water, and we're going to do our wallpapering. We're going to dip that paper in. You got to do it quickly. You don't want to leave it in the water too long. Hold your fingers down on top of it, and just slide it along underneath your fingers in the water, like that. And watch those little cuts that you made. You don't tear it, like that. Okay, I'm going to move my water out of the way so I don't tip it over. I'm just running it across my cloth there for a second. Okay, so I'm just going to lay this down, and we're going to start with the long edge. My thumb's already sticking to it. And you're going to line up that fold with the outer edge of the box that you were using as your mark. And you start to turn it around the corner. Same, lining up that fold. Right? And then you're just going to fold this piece over. And get your cloth. And use your cloth to wipe off that excess water. Just going to get my cloth here. And you don't have to work really quickly, but you want to work while this tape is still activated. And you have to be careful it doesn't stick to other surfaces as well. So I'm just going to pull my corners in so they're nice and tight, like that. And this is covered. And then I'm just going to flip it around and do this side. Matching up that fold, matching up that other fold, just so it's up off the ground, up off the table surface. And then we're just going to fold this piece down. And again, use your cloth because it will get sticky. And then we're going to fold this piece. And you just want to rub your finger along that corner and make sure that it's pulled around the corner. And then just fold this piece down. Like that. Use your cloth. Like that. And then I have this little excess piece. Because we started here right on that corner, I just do a little extra piece to fold around that corner to cover up in case that corner has a bare spot there. So there is the bottom piece covered. And if you have any little pieces that don't match, don't be afraid to pull on the paper and move it while it's still wet. I've got some hairs from the string from the tape. Just pull it in until it closes up that little hole there, like that. So there we go. And we're going to let that dry. And we're going to flip it over. Now we're going to do the top. And we're going to do the same thing. You're going to fold this in half with the sticky side in. And I just went with the crease of the string. Angle our ends. And this one's a little trickier, but we can manage. I just had some, oh there it is, I knew I saw some more there. So I'm going to start with the long side first. And you want to make sure all your little corners are glued, so just go around and push down everything. If you have any gaps, just give it a pinch. There we go, we're all glued. Okay, so now we're going to start on the top. And this one's similar. We're going to put our corner into the corner right there. And you're going to be putting that fold, stop it, on top of the box. Like that, you're just pushing it down like that. And then when you get to this corner, you're going to go around that corner and line up that fold again. And then there's going to be that funny little, instead of making a V, you're pushing it right in until you can find a little crease mark where you know the corner is. And that one didn't work very well, but, and you're going to cut another little V there. Like that, and that'll go in your bin. So when you put this back in, that wasn't wide enough. You want to put that in there, right that, and then when you fold this over, it'll go like that onto the inside, and that will go down. So this one I can do a little better. So what I do is I kind of just push into the corner with my thumbnail, and you'll see a little tiny crease there, and then I just pull this piece over and fold it in. So you're going to get a little tiny crease right there where that corner is, and then I just eyeball it, keep my finger there, and that's where I'm going to cut my little triangle out. Put it in my scrap bin. So we're dry fitting this so that when it's wet, it's a lot easier to put on. Okay, so we're going to go to the next corner, and you're just going to push your thumbnail gently and bend that paper in until you can get your thumbnail in and bend it over. And you're just trying to mark it with your thumbnail as to where you want to make that little snip. It doesn't have to be exactly on line. We're just covering these up. So there we go. There's another one. Like that. And then we have that one more because we have that overlap. So I'm just pushing it down and gently pulling it in until I get a corner crease right there. I've got a little tiny corner crease that I can see. And that's where we're going to cut our V. There we go. Put that in the bin. Okay, so now we're going to wet this piece the same way. Let's move our scissors. Let's get our cloth. And I'm just going to put this in just like foil paper. Again, as soon as you dip it, start pulling it under your fingers. Get back. Now you can do this in two pieces if you want. You can do a long side and a skinny side, a small side, and then you just have to have a little tiny overhang. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me move my water out of the way here. That's why I have my mat down. This wet paper sits on that mat. I'm just going to move my cutter mat here. There we go. So now we're going to line this up with that fold, and there's like, that's why it has the lines in the paper. It's great. And then we're just going to fold that piece over, and I just rub it across the top and then down. And again, you can use your cloth. Don't rub hard because you'll pull it, you'll make it move. And then you're going to go along the side like this, line up that fold, and then you're going to fold it across the top and then in. And see where my little corner didn't match up very well? So I just have to pull this guy down a bit. And you can take your scissors and recut that fold if you have to. It's just easier if you do it pre, because when the tape is wet, it's harder to cut. There we go. And it will get sticky. There we go. And I've got a little piece here. If you don't cut your corners perfectly, and a little bit of the corner of the box shows, I'll show you how to repair that. So let's just put that one on next. And again, I have to cut this back because I guess I was off a little bit. I'm just going to cut that corner a bit more. There we go. And this one goes across this way. Sticky fingers. Got them in my water. Here we go. And then again, we're just going to fold that piece over and down. Now I have a little piece here that's missing the corner, and I'm going to show you how to fix that real quickly here. So you want to run your fingers along and then bend this one over and down like that. And then this one goes over. That one can come in a bit more. There we go. Just pull it into the inside a little bit more. If you find that you're not getting enough covering the edges, just pull it down. So pull the paper into the inside a little bit more. I wasn't right on that fold line. Okay, and then fold your last piece over like that. And then you just want to go across the edges very gently. Give them a nice quick wipe. Okay, so I have one corner here that has where I've cut my V and it's a little off. Just take one of your little clip-offs from your little scrap bin that you've cut off a corner and wet it. Make sure it's nice and wet. And you're just going to put it over your corner like that. And it covers up that little piece that you've cut wonky. Like that. So there is, and you're going to let this dry. You want to put it in a nice warm spot where it doesn't take long for it to dry. So there is one box. It has the edges covered here, the tops covered, and the bottom covered, and the inside covered. And I'm just going to let this dry because it's still a little bit tacky. It doesn't take, honestly, it doesn't take long. So we're going to set this aside. And I will do the other drawer off camera. And it's the same process for the longer one. Same thing. Now for this, what I'll do is I'll get to the stage, I'll get the box put together. And then when I get to the stage of doing the outer edges, I'll show you how to do just one side, then the other with a little overhang, and then do the other one. And once we get to that stage, what you want to do is take your drawer. So this is the drawer that I did for the demo, for the showing you. And you're going to take some distress ink. And I'm going to be covering this with paper like this on the front. And I've just come back about a 16th or an 1/8 of an inch from the edge of that brown wrapping paper. So I'm going to be distressing all my edges. So I'm just going to take my distress ink. And you don't have to do this if you don't want that vintage look. You can use a different kind of, you can use paper and glue if you want just white edges. But you just don't want to see that chipboard. So I'm just taking my distress ink and I'm going to go around those. I'm going to go around the bottom edges and I'm going to go around those sides. On both sides like that. Okay, my handle's making rackety noise. There we go. So I'm going to go along that edge, and along the bottom. So that when I lay my paper on here, I'm going to be going really close to the edge. I'm not going to go right to the edge with the paper. I'm going to go about a 16th or an 1/8 of an inch in, probably an 1/8 of an inch in. And then what you'll see is this distressed edge of the brown paper. That will show along the edges like this. So all these little edges here have been distressed. Okay, so that's what you're going to do once you let them dry. So I'm going to say I'm going to set this box aside and let it dry. I'll work on the second one and I'll come back when I've got the larger one put together.